This is the reading of the Woods of Woodford Chapter 4. If you have not already listened to chapters 1, 2, and 3, you will want to do so before continuing with this video. The Woods of Woodford Chapter 4. Bobob was angry with Frank from earlier that day, when he had caused him to get his name written on the board. At that time, he was only really angry about that one thing. But as the day wore on and things started to get out of hand, he became even more angry with Frank, and he wasn't even sure why. After all, it was not Frank's fault that the girls had told on Bobob. You would think that Bobob would have known that Gretchen and her friends would surely tell the teacher that he had this horrible habit of not thinking things through. He was constantly realizing what the consequences may be once it was too late to do anything about them. So this whole thing was not Frank's fault, but he felt angry at him for earlier and scared about being in trouble alone, so he decided to continue with his lie that he had gotten the perfume from Frank. They had just entered the classroom. It stunk horribly. "Oh, wow," Frank's father commented. "This is the worst smell I have ever smelled. Frank, I sure hope you are telling the truth, and you had nothing to do with this." "Dad, I promise," was all Frank could say. "Frank," the principal spoke up, "would you be so kind as to lead us to your desk?" Frank was more than happy to do this. He wanted his name cleared from this crime. He knew he was innocent and had nothing to hide, so he lost no time in pointing out to his desk and walking towards it. Once he was there, he stopped and said, "Here it is." The principal was the first to go to the desk. She leaned down to see if she could tell whether or not there was more of the stink coming from his chair than there was from the rest of the room. After taking a sample smell, she quickly stood up, straight, and winced. She didn't have to say anything. The look on her face said it all, and then some. Frank's stomach sank. He thought he might be sick, and it had nothing to do with the smell in that classroom. His father, who had been undecided what to believe until this moment, saw her face and made his way toward the desk. His response to the smell of the chair was the same as the principal's, but there was one difference. Along with the look of disgust on his face from what he had smelled, there was also a look of anger. He was angry with Frank. How could this be? Frank knew he was innocent. "Dad," he started. "I didn't." "Not another word, Frank." His father didn't yell. He rarely did, but make no mistake about it, he was angry, and he knew how to take care of business. "Frank, we will discuss this further when we get home, and I don't want to hear another word about the pet store, not today or any day soon." Frank began to cry. Gretchen was in her backyard, dreading to do what she knew she must. She must be brave. This was important. If there were assignments and she did not have them done, that would throw her entire day off tomorrow. And if her day was thrown off, it would ruin her week. A ruined week could mean a ruined month and year, and yes, a ruined life. It was a chain reaction that she must not let begin. It was time to face her fears. She headed toward the trail. Every bird that cawed from above and every crack of a twig under her shoes made her want to run and hide. It felt as if she was in a strange carnival room and everything was closing in on her as she neared her dreaded destination. Her mother had always advised her to think about happy things when she was afraid. She tried this now, but every thought would begin happy and slowly drift back to thoughts of horribleness that were worse than the last. "Get a hold of yourself, Gretchen," she tried to reassure herself. "It will be okay. It won't take long to get to Armelda's house. You will be through the woods and back in no time." While she was saying this, she had an idea and believed it was a good one. It had been about a year since she had actually been on the trail, but she believed she still knew the way that would lead to Armelda's house. Once she was in the woods, she could run as fast as she could. She was a pretty fast runner. There had even been a time at recess that she had outrun Bobob. Of course, he accused her of cheating and said he wasn't ready. He was always full of excuses. As she was formulating this plan, she continued to talk to herself. "Has it really been a year?" she said. "Yes, I suppose it has. It is crazy how fast time has gone by." You see, Gretchen wasn't always afraid of the trail in the woods. As a matter of fact, it used to be her favorite place to go. There had been wonderful adventures and bike rides on that trail that had brought her all kinds of fun and happiness. Those days were over, though. What she had seen on that day a year ago had been so awful, so scary, so unbelievable that she still had nightmares about it. She had made the decision at that time never to set foot in those woods again, unless she absolutely had to. Right now, she felt that she did. The walk through the yard was now over. She was at the beginning of the trail. Closing her eyes, she said a quick prayer. Opening her eyes, she felt no braver, but that didn't matter. This had to be done. "It's time," she said. Then she stepped onto the trail. Bob finally made it home that night. He was in big trouble. There were all kinds of extra assignments from school he was going to have to do for punishment, and that wasn't the worst of it. He always knew that if he got into trouble at school, he would be in even worse trouble once he got home. His parents wanted to make sure that he learned his lesson. He didn't always realize it, but it was for his own good. They wanted to help him make better decisions in life. To him, though, being punished was the worst. He had had a long talk with his parents that evening. Along with several extra chores, he was now also grounded. He now sat in his room. He was supposed to be working on some of the extra assignments he had been given for his punishment from school, but he didn't feel like it. Today had started so awesome, a great plan, a perfect execution, and then the entire world seemed to crash down upon him. As he was thinking about all of this, he suddenly heard a noise. "What was that?" he asked. "Is my mind playing tricks on me?" He heard it again. "No, it isn't my imagination. It sounded like it came from the window." It had come from the window. A strange tapping sound had definitely come from the window. At first he thought that maybe it was a bird, but he doubted it. He couldn't ever remember a bird pecking at his window. What could it be? He crossed the room to the window. When he got there, he lifted the blinds and looked out. He jumped at what he saw. The blinds came crashing down, and he almost let out a scream. And that's the end of the chapter. Come back next time for the reading of Chapter 2. Chapter 5, rather, of the Woods of Woodford.